Good afternoon, I'm Milton Walker with the Midday News. Special welcome if you are watching on onespotmedia.com. The Jamaica Teachers Association and the National Secondary Students Council are the latest stakeholder groups adding their condemnation of the new skull breaker, also called Jump Trip Challenge, that is spreading online. The Education Ministry and the Children's Advocate have already raised concerns about the potentially deadly social media trend. Giovanni Dennis has this TVJ News follow-up.
Another attempt at the Jump Trip Challenge.
Yeah, man.
Trust me?
Sure.
Sure? John, you know. Oh, you mean? Let's jump. Let's jump. Let's jump.
Or so it appears. These are representatives from the National Secondary Students Council NSSC condemning the deadly online challenge Jump Trip, Skull Breaker or Tripping Jump.
What did you think was going to happen?
I know. That ridiculous jump challenge? How ridiculous. Broken leg, arm, severe spinal damage that can lead to death. This needs to stop. I repeat, this needs to stop.
Yo, I hear that thing that.
Already, the Education Ministry has urged schools to crack down on the challenge after a Meadowbrook student broke his hand because of the challenge. The Jamaica Teachers Association is also warning against the risky prank.
The Jamaica Teachers Association is at this time deeply concerned and indeed disturbed by the infamous tripping jump challenge perpetrated by unthinking and uncaring students in our schools. We see it as a deadly threat to safety and security in our schools at a time when we are seeking to make our schools into safe zones which are conducive to teaching and learning. We call on our students to immediately cease partaking in this practice.
Mr. Speed is urging teachers and guardians to do all in their powers to rid schools and communities of the hazardous craze observed mostly among teenagers.
We must, within our schools and our communities, establish a zero-tolerance approach and definitive consequences for these potentially deadly acts against innocent students and children. While we are at this time calling on our students to immediately cease partaking in this practice, we are also asking school administrators, grade supervisors, classroom teachers, and student leaders to be at their vigilant best.
The Office of the Children's Advocate says the prank started in South America. Videos of young Jamaicans participating emerged last week. Giovanni Dennis, TVJ News.
The Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, SEDEMA, is awaiting feedback from some member countries to finalize the regional response to the COVID-19 coronavirus. Our news center spoke with the head of SEDEMA following a webinar hosted by the Caribbean Broadcasting Union. Here is TVJ's Andrew Chisholm with the details.
Over 64,000 reported cases of the COVID-19 coronavirus worldwide, and as at Friday, close to 1,400 people have died. China and the rest of the world are rushing to halt the spread. There have been no reported cases in the Caribbean, but the region isn't taking any chances. Individual Caribbean countries like Jamaica have activated their emergency health systems. SEDEMA, headed by Ronald Jackson, is working on a regional response.
And you look at the Chinese case in particular, where you have what one can say a worst case scenario. If you use that as your sort of your planning benchmark for worst case and come back to your best case, then there are certain areas we would want to be concerned about in terms of our ability to manage a large number of persons who may be socially distanced or quarantined, let me put it that way, as well as questions as to whether we will be able to provide the necessary support if our numbers grow beyond the on-hand resources that we have.
SEDEMA is working alongside its partners, including the Pan-American Health Organization PAHO and the Caribbean Public Health Agency CARPHA. There's no specific budget for COVID-19 coronavirus, but if needed, donors will be asked to contribute to the Emergency Assistance Fund.
But we're waiting on our member states to come back with feedback on the broader whole of government approach in that regard. Our role in terms of stockpiling would have to feed off of what gaps countries are saying that they have, and that hasn't come forward in all cases at the moment. And what CARFA is saying is its gap, and then together we would look to see what strategies can be applied in terms of closing that gap beyond simply the resources that we may have at our immediate disposal.
Mr. Jackson reiterated that Caribbean countries have to use a multi-sectoral approach. Health is just one aspect.
What you're looking at is an interface between health, border security, and humanitarian support. We would have to come up with a clear appreciation of what a surge response would look like in the worst case scenario.
Andrea Chisholm, TVJ News.
The opposition is seemingly taking the government to task over the sharing of information to combat the deadly COVID-19 coronavirus. Speaking on Power 106 FM's Morning Agenda this morning, the opposition spokesman on health, Dr. Maurice Guy, says a lot more needs to be done by the government to ensure that the country's seaports are safe. TVJ's O'Shane Masters reports.
With the rapidly rising death toll from the coronavirus, many are worried about the impact of such a virus on Jamaica's health sector and economy. The death toll from the COVID-19 reached approximately 2,000 at the end of Sunday. Across mainland China, there were 2,048 new confirmed infections, pushing the new total of infections to almost 71,000. But back home, concerns are being raised by the opposition in relation to the number of visitors that will arrive in the country this year and the security of Jamaicans.
We have been approached by some operators within the cruise shipping industry, those who work on land, interface with the visitors who come, that as far as they're aware, there are no plans in place, no contingencies in place, no proper protocols in place to screen these visitors. As we have been told, is done at the airports.
To that, Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton gave this response.
One could take a very extreme position if you wanted to, and as a country, and just prevent anyone, certainly in the cruise industry, from coming on shore. But clearly that would have other very significant implications for an industry. The issue, therefore, is there a risk associated with allowing tourism through cruise shipping to function while we manage and monitor that risk? And clearly that is the position that we have taken, as is the case with the rest of the world.
But Dr. Guy maintains the country could still feel the impact if there is an unsuspecting case of the virus entering through the country's seaports.
We are concerned that just one single one might slip through and then infect the population. I mean, according to WHO, one run the minimum risk of transmitting to 2 or 3 persons.
However, the health minister is assuring Jamaicans that all is in place and the relevant authorities will make the necessary decisions to keep the citizens safe.
I do maintain that based on past history, the health authorities do have a good system. It has turned back ships before. I personally, as minister, have, working with the team, turned back an entire cruise ship because of a health risk that was perceived at the time. So we're not afraid to take decisions.
O'Shane Masters, TVJ News.
The Jamaica Defence Force is still on lockdown after 2 rifles disappeared on Saturday. Military personnel are continuing their search for the 2 M16 rifles believed to be stolen from the armory. Our news team observed detailed checks at the gate of the Jamaica Defence Force base at South Camp Road this morning. TVJ News understands that all green spaces, unoccupied buildings, vehicles and scrap piles were ordered searched. Media Affairs Officer for the JDF, Major Basil Jarrett, told the news centre that the situation has not changed up to this morning. On Saturday, Chief of Defence Staff, Lieutenant General Rocky Meade, said all JDF members were confined to base as his teams search for the missing weapons. It's still not clear how the 2 M16 rifles disappeared. And now it's time for a break. On Midday News, we'll be right back. Welcome back. Continuing the news. Gender Minister Mrs. Olivia Grange says the government is moving swiftly to have the Domestic Violence Act passed. Speaking with TVJ News recently, Minister Grange said the government has identified several amendments.
Such as increasing the penalties, for example, and strengthening where the enforcement order, the restraining order can be stronger. Number of things, and we will be moving very speedily to ensure that that is done.
You say moving speedily, but talk to me about the time frame we're talking about here.
Within the first quarter.
Ms. Grange added that the sexual harassment bill is also a priority.
We are actually meeting weekly to ensure that we fast track this piece of legislation. So far, the hearings that we have had, the inputs that have been made, have been tremendous. They have been very useful recommendations, and so the committee will have a lot of work to do in reviewing these presentations and determining what additional clauses will be added.
As the People's National Party, the PNP, intensifies its campaign activities, a call for the Prime Minister to pay more attention to national issues. This announcement was made as the party presented Dr. Winston Delahaye to the people of East Central St. Catherine. More from TVJ's Kalisha Williams.
On Sunday night, the People's National Party, PNP, introduced their candidate, Dr. Winston Delahaye, to the people of East Central St. Catherine. Dr. Delahaye will be going up against the JLP's Orlando Terrelong for the seat in the next general election. Member of Parliament for North West St. Anne, Dr. Dayton Campbell, believes Dr. Delahaye is the right man for the job.
We want to give you a member of Parliament that will represent the issues in the constituency. We want to give you a member of Parliament that will listen to your concerns and will develop programs and policies to fix your concerns. Will ensure that your children can go to school, that you have good road for drive pan, and that you too can get some high prosperity.
And while encouraging party supporters to choose Dr. Delahaye as their representative, Dr. Campbell took a jab at the JLP.
Because Andrew run gone over Southeast Clarendon saying, I check the pulse of the people with $30 million. And we can't check the pulse of sick patient in the hospital because we don't have any machine in the hospitals. And that's a shame on you, Mr. Prime Minister.
He also accused Prime Minister Andrew Holness of neglecting national issues.
Andrew, murder gone upon your watch. Look for me new clocks. Andrew, people are suffer. Look for me new clocks. Andrew, man a kill off them baby mother. Look for me new clocks. Andrew, me road bad. Look for me new clocks. Andrew, people are get deregistered up on your way. Look for me new clocks. We need leadership that is meaningful in this country.
Kalisha Williams, TVJ News.
With deportees returning to Jamaica, concerns are being raised about how they're being processed by the Jamaican government and released into society. The issue was raised on TVJ's Smile Jamaica this morning. TVJ's Anthony Lugg reports.
Head of the JCF's Corporate Communications Unit, Senior Superintendent Stephanie Lindsay, says most migrants are deported as a result of immigration issues. Attorney at law John Bassey says due to the complicated nature of deportation, it's wrong to assume that all deportees are violent criminals.
With the UK, I can speak to the UK, there are two types of removal. You have the administrative removal, which is really called forced removal, and it normally speaks to a person who has no more time left in England. There's no more leave to remain there. And then, of course, you have the deportation. Deportation speaks to where a person has, in fact, gone to a criminal sentence for 12 months or longer and has to be removed by a deportation notice.
17 deportees recently arrived in the island on a charter flight from the UK. These individuals had various convictions and a combined sentence of 75 years. One had a life sentence. Senior Superintendent Stephanie Lindsay sought to explain what will happen to those with incomplete sentences and those who have already served their sentences.
Once we get the information that persons will be coming, then they will check our local system to see if we have any interest in them, because there are some persons who go abroad because they are running away from our justice system. So if they fall into that category, upon return, we would have an interest in them. Otherwise, if they have served their time overseas, no matter the seriousness of the offense, when they come to Jamaica, they go through this processing, they check fingerprints, they check identity, because sometimes they are sent back under a different name than the names we have, so we go through that. But after that process is done, then there's no monitoring. They are free citizens.
She also addressed concerns raised about the migrants who had nowhere to go.
For persons who don't have anyone to receive them, there are at least 2 NGOs that really come in and support them. So they will provide them with meal, they will take their information, whatever belongings they have, and they will provide them with some temporary shelter and accommodation until they find a way to sort themselves out.
Anthony Lugg, TVJ News.
In sports, the Jamaica Rugby Sevens team has one less competition to play in preparation for the Intercontinental Playoffs for the Olympic Games, as the Hong Kong Sevens has been postponed. Since Hong Kong is close to mainland China, the governing body of the sport, World Rugby, has moved the annual tournament from April to October due to the coronavirus outbreak. The series of qualifiers for the Olympic Games is slated for June 20 and 21 in France. Chairman of the Jamaica Rugby Union, Jerry Benswick, says he will be searching for another competition to prepare the team for the Olympic qualifiers.
This means for Jamaica that we have one less tournament to prepare for the repechage Olympic qualifiers, which would follow. So now we are without an extra tournament. It means that we have to put in more work at the one that we're presently in, and hopefully look for another tournament to attend before the repechage. This will be costly because the Hong Kong Sevens was a funded trip, so now we're going to have to probably seek sponsorship in order to get some of our boys either over into the UK to get into our tournament, or we want to maybe fly them to the Vegas Sevens to participate in one of the lesser tournaments that's going on there.
Jamaica has competed at the Hong Kong Sevens in each of the last 3 years. And that's the Midday News. I'm Milton Walker. Join us at 7 for Primetime News on behalf of the news, sports and production teams. Good afternoon.